Why wasn't Hitler able to produce more synthetic fuel? Because it seems like he could have won if he had more
Well,
synthetic fuel.
I think you would have needed to get to a scale that they could never get to.
Mm.
That was one thing, the synthetic fuel, which meant making oil out of coal using a chemical process. And the other thing is that the Allies bombed the plants as well. World War II was not an oil war, but there was an oil war within World War II.
Yeah.
When Hitler invaded Russia, he was not only going for Moscow, he was also going for the oil fields of Baku. When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, as Admiral Nimitz, who was the naval commander, said if they'd come back a third time and hit the oil tanks, World War II in the Pacific would have taken another 2 years. General Rommel in North Africa runs out of oil. He says, he writes his wife, shortage of oil, it's enough to make one weep. General Patton's lunge in 1944 for Germany is held back by oil. And the U.S. is going after the oil lines that are supplying the Japanese to basically drain the oil out of the Japanese war machine. And one of the things that was a real eye-opener for me, people have heard of the kamikaze pilots who would fly their planes into the aircraft carrier. One big reason they were doing that was to save fuel so they wouldn't have to fly back.
Right. And also the Pacific War was instigated. The Japanese needed more oil because of the war in Manchuria, but precisely because of the war, that there were embargoes on oil.
The U.S. put an embargo on them, and one of the Japanese admirals said, without the oil, our fleet will become scarecrows.
I'm kind of curious about when different parts of the world realized how crucial oil is as a strategic resource. Was it after World War I, after World War II?
Well, I think after World War I, it clearly was on the agenda in a way that it hadn't been before. And you had governments much more engaged in supporting, U.S. companies. There was also this vision that the U.S., which, by the way, the U.S. was so dominant as a producer. Remember that 6 out of 7 barrels of oil that were used by the Allies during World War II, 6 out of 7 of them came from the United States. So, but after World War I, you had these fears of running out. And so that was one reason the U.S. government supported American companies beginning to go into the Middle East because governments recognized you needed oil.